This is CBN NewsWatch.
And thank you so much for joining us for CBN NewsWatch for Thursday, October 24th. I'm Ephraim Graham. Ahead today, we've got a look at how the Democrats plan to use next year's election to keep control of Congress for more than a decade to come. And we're going to show you the key issue they're going to use against Republicans. A father in Texas loses a court battle, so now his ex-wife has the opportunity to transition their 7-year-old son into a girl. We're going to tell you how the Texas state government is responding to this case. In the aftermath of the fighting between Turkey and the Kurds in Syria, we're going to hear about the warnings by Christians in northeast Syria of a possible religious genocide and how one of the teachings of Jesus can actually help you to sleep better. We've got those stories and much more ahead in this edition of CBN NewsWatch. I want to begin this half hour with a look at the Democrats' plan to, in the next year's election, gain control of Congress not just for the next 2 years, but for the next decade. Democrats hope to win back the state legislature so they can redraw congressional districts and keep control of the House of Representatives. And the weapon they plan to use in this political battle is health care. Jennifer Wishon brings us the story now from Washington.
We hear an awful lot about the 2020 presidential race, but next month, 538 state legislative seats are up for grabs, and the winners of those races, plus more to come next year, will shape the makeup of Congress for a decade. Voters in Louisiana, Mississippi, New Jersey, and Virginia cast their votes November 5th. While President Obama was in the White House, Democrats lost nearly 1,000 state legislative seats. Now they're laser focused on getting them back, and they're punching Republicans on health care.
Sturtevant voted to deny access to health coverage to 400,000 Virginians and expand plans that let insurance companies deny coverage for pre-existing conditions.
Kick people with pre-existing conditions off their health insurance.
Democrats know protections for people with pre-existing conditions are popular. And even though President Trump says he supports those protections, there's been no action, and Democrats smell blood.
Republicans just don't do health care. This has never been one of their strong suits, and it's a real and decades-long problem. It's one of the reasons we got the Affordable Care Act, or Obamacare, is because Republicans have paid insufficient attention to this issue.
Tuesday, a group of House Republicans working closely with the White House released a proposal they say gives Americans freedom of choice, a clear alternative to socialist policies popular on the left.
Parts of that proposal are really strong. They would take the $828 billion of workers' earnings that employers now get to control because of a weird quirk of the tax code. They would give that $828 billion to the workers who earned it. That's a huge change. And then the workers could buy their own health insurance that stays with them as they move from job to job, rather than having their employer choose a plan for them that disappears when they move to another job.
And at the president's urging, protections for pre-existing conditions.
We want to protect pre-existing conditions by treating those who are self-employed the same way we treat those who get insurance through their job.
And how the health care debate turns out could have a lot to do with those state legislative races, because after the 2020 census, those lawmakers will draw congressional lines that will stand through 2030. Jennifer Wishon, CBN News, Washington.
Jennifer, thank you. Chaos erupted during another day of closed-door testimony on Capitol Hill. The Pentagon official overseeing Ukraine was supposed to testify yesterday, but that hearing quickly got shut down when a group of Republican lawmakers stormed in. They accused Democrats of overseeing a, quote, secretive Soviet-style process in their impeachment inquiry and leaking selective information. But Democrats called their stand-in a stunt meant to distract.
By golly, if they're going to do it in public.
This is an effort to please the president, to try to shut down the process. It's a stunt.
The GOP is demanding the full House vote on impeachment that would open up the hearings to the public and allow the White House in on the process. House Democrats say they're preparing to move their impeachment inquiry onto a more public stage as soon as mid-November. I want to turn now to Israel. The political drama continues as President Reuven Rivlin has now given former military chief and blue and white party leader Benny Gantz the task of forming the next government. The move came after Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu returned the mandate earlier this week after failing to pull together a majority of Israeli parliament members for his government. No one other than Netanyahu has been asked to form a government for the last 10 years. Rivlin said it's possible to form a government and avoid a third round of elections in a year. Gantz promised to do what Netanyahu could not.
It's true that everyone will pay a price when a new government is formed, but it's the Israeli citizens that will pay the heaviest price if a government is not formed.
I promised I would form a united liberal government, and I intend to do so. In the government formed by me, I will serve and act for all Israeli citizens.
Gantz has 28 days to form a government. If he fails, it is likely Israelis will head to the polls yet again for the third time in less than a year. Back here in the United States, the Texas state government is looking into the case of a Texas father who lost his legal attempt to stop his ex-wife from potentially turning their 7-year-old son into a girl. Texas Governor Greg Abbott tweeted, "The state attorney general's office and the Department of Family and Protective Services are looking into the situation." LifeSite News reports a jury and judge ruled against the father in the case. That appears to give the mother the go-ahead to turn their son James into a girl who will now be called Luna. Even though the boy's father says James is with him, he shows no signs of wanting to be a girl when given that choice. Conservative commentator Matt Walsh tweeted, "I can't get over this case in Texas. A mother decided her 7-year-old boy is really a girl because he likes the movie Frozen." Walsh went on to say, quote, "I don't think people realize just how monumental this case is. We've just crossed a threshold as a society. There's no going back. These are very dark times." Thousands of witches are planning to cast a binding spell against President Donald Trump just before midnight tomorrow night. The spell is meant to bind the administration so that it will fail in its plans. The witches will call upon demonic entities to accomplish their purpose, and people who have been involved in spiritual warfare warn that such actions can be dangerous. Witchcraft has exploded in the U.S. since the 1990s, and you can find more on these stories at cbnnews.com. Coming up, the dramatic changes in the Middle East after President Donald Trump pulled U.S. forces out of parts of Syria, and Russia making a deal with Turkey. We're going to hear why some analysts say the power shift could have disastrous consequences for some former allies of the United States.
On October 1st, 1961, history was made when a tiny station began transmitting the first signals of the Christian Broadcasting Network.
CBN, the Christian Broadcasting Network.
And now, a new era has begun with the all-new CBN News Channel.
Just moments ago, the Iron Dome intercepted an incoming rocket right on the Gaza border.
Administering in this area, spiritual warfare is definitely involved.
A 24/7 news network, bringing you the news you want from a source you can trust.
In Kenya, 40% of the medical services are actually provided by these Christian hospitals.
Let's talk about the economy.
Believers here are joining together to win people to Jesus Christ.
All your favorite shows now in one place. Go to CBNNewsChannel.com to find out how to get the CBN News Channel on your TV all day, every day. CBN News. Life is better with a good night's sleep. Get your free DVD or booklet of Protect Your Sleep today.
Life. It's meant to be lived fully. Jesus said it. I came to give you life. Life to the fullest. Life in your family. Life in your finances. Life in your body, mind, and spirit. Life in your everyday. At CBN.com, we're taking what Jesus said seriously. We're here to help you discover life. Life. Live it fully. CBN.com.
Get the top political news and analysis from Washington on Faith Nation, tonight at 6 Eastern, only on the CBN News Channel.
2 days after Turkish President Erdogan and Russian President Putin met to divide northeast Syria, Turkey, Russia, and the Assad regime are beginning to take control of that area that had been controlled by U.S. forces just days ago. As Chris Mitchell now reports, some in that region say the power shift could have disastrous consequences for former allies of the United States and for Christians in the area.
Syrian and Turkish troops displayed flags at what was the Kurdish headquarters just 2 weeks ago. CBN News has learned some experts on the region are concerned the people leading the self-administration government might be arrested or that there could be retribution and revenge killings by the Assad regime for the people who just 2 weeks ago were the main U.S. allies in the region. But they say it could be averted if the U.S. stays in eastern Syria. On Capitol Hill, there's talk of war crimes by troops allied with Turkey during the invasion.
We would say that Turkish-supported Syrian opposition forces who were under general Turkish command in at least one instance did carry out a war crime, and we have reached out to Turkey to demand an explanation.
And if accurate, and I assume that they are accurate, they would be war crimes, as best as I know the law of land warfare.
At the White House, President Trump declared victory and lifted sanctions on Turkey.
This was an outcome created by us, the United States, and nobody else. No other nation. Very simple. And we're willing to take blame, and we're also willing to take credit.
The president also warned Turkey it needed to protect religious minorities, or he would reimpose sanctions. From inside northeast Syria, Christians issued a stark warning about Turkey.
Turkey is now conducting an ethnic and religious genocide against the people of northeastern Syria, in particular the Christians. Turkey is using the extremist terrorist groups to occupy the Syrian territories. Now in the region occupied by Turkey, all the Christians, Yazidis, and Kurds fled their homes, and only the radical jihadists are there.
Those extremist terrorist groups the Syriac Christian Union blamed are the Free Syrian Army that Turkey uses as their shock troops. It's a military unit some call ISIS 2.0.
The photographic evidence has emerged that some of the fighters have been identified, positively identified, as former ISIS people and former Al-Qaeda people who've just kind of, remustered, so to speak, into this new Turkish-supported formation. There's been evidence has emerged of the soldiers doing ISIS salutes. Some examples even of guys wearing patches and badges of ISIS. It's as clear-cut as that. And certainly, footage emerging of them talking to their phone cameras, so to speak, and then putting it up on the internet, they or their comrades, in which they're, planning, to deal with the apostates and the infidels.
Meanwhile, the humanitarian crisis continues as hundreds of thousands of people forced to flee their homes have no place to go.
And Chris Mitchell joins us now from Jerusalem. So, Chris, how serious are these warnings by Christians in northeast Syria about ethnic cleansing and religious genocide?
Quite serious, Ephraim. Right now, Syrian Christians are basically on a genocide watch. And right now, they also have not only a short-term memory, but a long-term memory. Many of the people in that region, remember 100 years ago or more when there's an Armenian genocide. They actually fled that region and came and settled in these areas right now. They have a short-term memory. Last year in March of 2018, there was ethnic cleansing and genocide against a town called Afrin, where hundreds of thousands of Kurds were ethnically cleansed, churches were burned, and Christians were hunted down. So, and you have to consider the people that they're facing. As we said in that report, many of these people, it's like ISIS 2.0. It's ironic that the forces coming against many of these Syrians are part of ISIS, and so that's the danger they have. Erdogan himself really has looked at this as a jihad. So the Syrian Christians are really putting out a message and a warning to other Christians around the world. Please stand with us. Please pray for us and speak out on our behalf.
Chris, we know NATO will be meeting. What are some of the issues they'll be raising about the situation in Syria?
Well, the main issue, Ephraim, is going to be about Turkey, and it's a NATO member. And look what it's done. It's actually allying with Russia right now, monitoring this safe zone. It's also received a very sophisticated anti-missile system, the S-400, from Russia. So the concern for many of these defense ministers is that NATO is actually going more Turkey is going away from NATO and into the Russian orbit. So that's what they're going to be talking about. One other issue they have is the possibility that Germany and other international members of the coalition against ISIS can help monitor this safe zone. But it might be too late for that. It might be a fait accompli that Russia and Turkey are already monitoring this zone. So it remains to be seen if that's going to happen. But the number one issue is going to be Turkey and its role right there in Syria.
What about the ISIS fighters held now by the Syrian Democratic Forces?
Well, I talked to someone earlier today, an SDF, not a member, but somebody related to the SDF membership. If the Syrian Democratic Forces, who have been monitoring these more than 70,000 ISIS prisoners, if somehow that's dissolved by the Syrian regime, it could have a nightmare scenario right now. If the Syrian regime doesn't keep them locked up as the SDF did, the Syrian Democratic Forces, that would be a nightmare scenario if you have thousands of ISIS members and their supporters loose inside Syria, possibly going to Iraq, which is pretty unstable right now. It really could change that whole dynamic and reverse what the international coalition, along with the U.S., has really destroyed the ISIS caliphate. But that's something really to be watching right now. What's going to happen with these ISIS prisoners?
All right, so much to watch. Thank you so much for your reporting from Jerusalem. Thank you, Chris. Still ahead, despite all the media headlines about the problems President Trump's trade battle with China is having on the U.S. economy, his tariffs are apparently hurting the Chinese economy. We're going to be taking a look at the impact on China and what may come in the next economic showdown. Stay with us.
Life is better with a good night's sleep. Get your free DVD or booklet of Protect Your Sleep today.
I'm Ephraim Graham, and this is Studio 5. Cruise with me as I discover the good things happening in the world of music, sports, television, and movies.
The fact that Ryan Coogler was going to be directing the film, I knew that something special was going to happen.
We'll chat with artists at the forefront of entertainment and explore the connection between popular culture and faith.
I asked my pastor, I said, well, does that mean I'm supposed to be a preacher? He says, well, no, you already have a pulpit.
Watch Studio 5 Wednesday night at 9:30.
Remember for a moment what it was like to be a child. You believed every story you were told. You saw a world full of endless possibilities. What stories will the world's orphaned and at-risk children believe? We believe the Bible tells the only story truly worth believing. We believe that every child should have the opportunity to dream, the chance to take challenges and turn them into possibilities, the chance to stand on the promises of God, to recognize their place in the greatest story ever told. They have their whole lives ahead of them. Theirs is a world of endless possibilities. They are looking for a story to believe. We will tell them that story. Will you join us?
China's economy is weakening, and President Trump's trade tariffs are one of the reasons why. The world's second largest economy announced late last week it had recorded its lowest quarterly growth rate since 1992. It came just after President Trump announced reaching an initial Phase 1 trade deal with Beijing. That agreement could lead to the purchase of up to $50 billion worth of American agricultural products. On this week's episode of The Global Lane, the CEO of Financial Issues Stewardship Ministries says the China trade deal might not happen anytime soon.
Right now, we've got China backtracking a little bit, the U.S. even backtracking a little bit. So, in the end, as we get closer, China ultimately, Gary, which they do all the time, they're going to say, well, they already said a couple days ago, they said we need to talk a little bit further meaning they want to try to make some changes. So it is really hard to say. I am not overly optimistic that a deal is going to get signed, but I am hopeful that a deal gets signed, this first phase of a trade agreement.
What do you make of China's slowing economy then? Are Trump's trade tariffs responsible for that, or is it something else, Dan?
No, I think it's the trade tariffs. I think they are definitely having a much more dramatic impact on their economy. I've seen satellite photographs of their ports, and not only are the shipping containers piled up high, there's really no space on the tarmac for any more containers. But when you look around at the cranes, there aren't any ships tied up near those cranes. Just looking at those things alone, it's very, very difficult. They are not only in a major economic downturn or slowdown, but they are also now faced with what could be major inflation. So the people that don't have jobs now that are starving because of what little they get paid if they are working are going to be faced with some inflation, unfortunately.
This trade deal is good news for American farmers if it happens, right?
Yes, it is good news for the farmers and the ranchers because of the swine flu. The African swine flu has decimated the hog population in China. About 65% of it is gone due to that. So, yeah, it is good news for the farmers. They can't I don't even think they're poised to produce $50 billion worth of ag, corn and soybean. But I guess they'll do it if they have to, and it's a real signed, firm deal. But I think farmers are going to be reluctant to plant based on a deal with China. That's always concerning. Things could change in a heartbeat. But China is at a place where their back is to the wall. Their economy is slowing dramatically. And if they're saying 6%, it's probably a lot lower than that. We don't know. We don't see the data like we do here. There's no transparency. They can basically say whatever they want. But from what we understand from import exports, they are struggling in dramatic fashion, and their supply chain continually gets smaller and smaller. And that's the big problem they're going to face for many years if this keeps going on for much longer.
What about financial institutions, intellectual property rights, those things?
The problem I have with the financial institution things, yes, it's very good for American financial institutions, but it's also a recipe for our financial institutions, which they likely will do, is going over there, issuing debt, getting in debt, getting more involved. And my fear is that they may feel necessary to give the yuan, the currency of China, a little bit of credibility. And China is going to be leaning on them to give their currency a little bit of credibility.
If a deal is signed before Christmas, what effect will that have on Wall Street investors and world financial markets?
Well, if a trade is signed before Christmas, it's going to have some benefits to world markets, just in the way of optimism, not necessarily feeling the benefits, but certainly be more optimistic. That optimism is going to be good for their economy, good for their consumers, good for those spending money in these economies.
Well, let's hope it's a Merry Christmas on that front. Dan Celia, Financial Issues Stewardship Ministries, thank you for your time.
Thank you, Gary. I appreciate being here.
And you can hear more from this interview and also Pastor Andrew Brunson, who talks about his darkest moments as a prisoner in Turkey. That is on the Global Lane this evening at 9:30 Eastern. And of course, you can find that only on the CBN News Channel. Coming up, a new study gives you a great tip on sleeping better and improving your health from the Bible. We're going to have that story when we come back. Thanks for watching.
Yeah, buddy.
How many nickels are in a dollar?
There are 20 nickels in a dollar.
How do birds fly? Does milk really make my bones stronger?
Yeah.
Daddy, when we die, will we go to heaven?
Do you have the answer to life's biggest question? Call the 700 Club. We'll help you find answers to the important questions life brings your way.
Watch breaking news, in-depth exclusive stories and programs from health to entertainment you won't find anywhere else. The CBN News Channel, a perspective you can trust. Enjoy credible news reporting from around the world. Discover inspiring programs and stories of hope, all in one place from a Christian perspective. The CBN News Channel, a perspective you can trust. To watch the CBN News Channel, download the app or visit cbnnewschannel.com.
Hello, I'm Dr. David Perlmutter, board-certified neurologist and #1 New York Times bestselling author. Wouldn't it be great to boost your energy, eliminate brain fog, and even reverse brain disease? Well, you can, and I'm going to show you how, along with some of the world's most well-respected brain experts, in this DVD, Protect Your Brain.
Get Protect Your Brain, a free DVD only from the Christian Broadcasting Network, featuring experts on the cutting edge of neuroscience and brain health.
No matter how many times you've failed in the past, you really can do this.
In Protect Your Brain, you'll discover simple strategies to keep your brain young and healthy. Improve your memory. Discover the gut-brain connection. In Protect Your Brain. Get your free copy at cbn.com or call 1-800-700-7000.
If you want to improve the quality of your life, get the DVD Protect Your Brain and get it today.
Young people, millennials, are flocking to church.
It's not an exaggeration to say that we love to meet them and that we love to know their stories.
Check out the CBN News Daily Rundown podcast each weekday with me, Caitlin Burke. Click on the show tab at cbnnews.com where you can listen and subscribe.
Perhaps you've tried warm milk, medications, or even counting sheep to get to sleep and sleep better. But new research shows that an act recommended by Jesus can actually improve your sleep: forgiveness. That's the finding from a new study published in the journal Psychology and Health. The Washington Post reports people who were forgiving were more likely to sleep better and longer and have better physical health. Researchers reported that people in the study who forgave others and themselves were also more satisfied with life. That said, it's time for your Thursday Thankful, and today I hope you will join me in this prayer of gratitude. God, thank you for your grace. It is the gift that continues to cover my mistakes and failings. It forgives even as I sometimes struggle to forgive myself. With that word, I encourage you to join me in making today a thankful Thursday. Well, that will do it for this edition of CBN Newswatch. Remember, you can always find more of our CBN News programs on the CBN News Channel at any time. Of course, also online at cbnnews.com. We'd love to know what you think about the stories you've seen here today or any day. You can email us. The address is newswatch@cbn.com. And of course, you can always reach out and touch us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. So I hope you'll join us again right here next time. Make it a thankful Thursday, everybody. We'll see you right back here same time tomorrow. Goodbye and God bless.